Colin's the crew chief at Vehicle. Vehicle's been around the community for a long time, and so has Colin. I think this is his sixth Laracon presentation, which is unbelievable, and something that I've seen Colin speak before. I've introed him before, and something that I will always say about Colin is that he makes me feel at peace. He's very calm and collected, which I think, given his topic, is going to be very necessary. So please welcome Colin DeCarlo to the stage. What's mine? All right.
Okay. All right. Yeah. AI and you. We're ready? Okay. So yeah, honestly, not much to say about me. My name is Colin DeCarlo. I am an experienced developer. Just can't stop looking at that. And a novice vibe coder, which I think does make me an expert. I work at Vehicle. We're a software consultancy with over 75 team members. We specialize in Laravel and JavaScript, of course. We've been a premier partner with Laravel for over a decade now, and we've worked with customers of all different sizes. So come by the booth, say hi, especially if you're interested in how we work. Over the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to go over a bit of a journey together. I've got 3 goals for this talk. First, what I want to do is I want to touch on and build an understanding of how AI models are being evaluated. The capabilities of them is expanding at a really rapid pace, so being informed helps us make the most out of what's being offered. Then, in true dev fashion, what I want to do is I want to watch and see what just happened when we took all of that raw power and we turned it up to 11. And then finally, we're going to explore some tips and techniques that embrace AI as a pair partner in your day-to-day work. So we are living through an incredible time right now. It is the start of the AI age, and there is tons of competition that is driving advancements forward and costs down. So as consumers, the problem that we have is just keeping pace. There's a new industry. That means new jargon, new players, new everything, really. So when OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, who else there? Meta, sorry, makes a release and says that our model is industry leading, who's telling the truth, right? The question is, leading in what, right? Like what benchmark are they using and how are they measuring it? So there are a number of benchmarks that are used to measure AI models across a wide variety of competencies. So as developers, there's a few that we should be paying particular attention to. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk about 3 specific benchmarks that I tend to look at when a new model is released. So first up is human eval, and it is the earliest and most widely used benchmark for AI code generation. It was created by OpenAI in 2021 for Codex. That's the model that's behind GitHub Copilot. And at the time, there just wasn't a good way to measure to see if AI could write functional code, so they made this data set. It consists of 164 Python coding tasks, each with a function signature and a hidden set of unit tests. And the idea is just to see if an AI model can take natural language prompt and generate a functional code that passes the tests. To evaluate performance, it uses a metric called pass at K. And this just means that out of K attempts, how many times does the model actually create functioning code that passes all of the tests? So while human eval is still used as a baseline, most modern models score so high on it that it's just not a very good differentiator anymore. And so for that, we need a tougher benchmark. And so SWE Bench Verified is one of those tougher benchmarks. It was developed by researchers at Princeton, MIT, and Meta, and the goal was to have a truly rigorous test for AI code generation. What makes it stand out is that it uses real bugs, real issues from production Python projects. So instead of writing toy functions, the model is asked to submit an actual fix for a real-world problem. But it does only get one shot at doing this. So it's asked to generate a patch, that patch is applied, and then all of the tests are run. If it fails anything, it's a 0, and there's no retries at all. There's 2 modes. There's Oracle mode, and that's where the model is told which file the problem exists in. And then there's end-to-end mode. And in end-to-end mode, what they have to do is search the repository, find the file that it thinks the problem's in, and fix it. So currently, the highest single model score on this benchmark is 73%, and that was by Claude Sonnet 4. So what that means is that 73% of the time, Claude was able to generate a fix that made all of the tests pass. Now, I'm an experienced developer, and I don't think I could do 73% of that on my first shot. I haven't done SWE bench yet, but I have stopped wearing shoes with laces. So that might be an indication. All right. Our last benchmark is the Aider Polyglot, which is quickly becoming a go-to for evaluating coding assistance. It uses 225 code challenges. These are small, well-structured programs, which makes them perfect for crafting consistent and realistic editing tasks. Tasks also span across multiple languages. So there's Python, Go, Rust, JavaScript, more. So that means that the models have to generalize their understanding beyond just one single environment. And rather than generating new code from scratch, models are asked to make localized edits. So things like renaming a function, right? Or refactoring a loop. So these are the types of tasks that we would actually use day to day. And finally, what I think is really great about this is that Aider uniquely tracks the model cost and token usage for every solution that it makes. So this gives us an idea of not just which models are accurate, but what is efficient and practical for us to use in a production setting. All right, so when we talk about evaluating AI models, it really is tempting to ask which one's the best model. But that question doesn't really make sense anymore. There is no best model. What we're seeing across the board is that models tend to be best in class, not best overall. So one model might be really good at editing code, but it might struggle with general knowledge. It is incredible, though, to see just how quickly and how much better these models have gotten over time. And as such, I do think it's completely reasonable and actually a little bit weird if you don't think about it in terms of Pokemon evolution. AI launched ChatGPT in November of 2022, okay? And that was less than 3 years ago. And in that time, we've gone from copying code back and forth between our IDEs and our chat windows, suffering from token anxiety, hoping we don't overrun our context windows and whatnot. And then we went to standalone tools, right, that have plugins and can even do function calling. Finally, we've moved into custom-built IDEs that offer hand-in-glove agentic workflows. I mean, it feels like we've actually climbed Maslow's pyramid for AI, and at the top, we didn't really find self-actualization there. No. At the top of this pyramid, we found vibe coding. All right, so 2 things, okay? First, this is the tweet. This is the tweet that coined that term vibe coding, all right? Second thing is that tweets in presentations have gotten a lot more demanding since blue check marks, and I apologize for that. And third, when I learned about vibe coding, I honestly did think it was a bit of a joke. I mean, the pitch is literally let AI code everything and accept all. I mean, what could possibly go wrong there, right? But joke or not, Andrej Karpathy really struck a chord when he wrote this tweet and he started something real. So who is Andrej Karpathy, right? Here's a bit of a background. He earned his PhD from Stanford in 2015, where he worked on deep learning and computer vision. Added that, he was also a founding member of OpenAI, playing a major role in its early direction and development. After that, he became the director of AI at Tesla, where he had led the autopilot vision team and helped build out machine learning stack there that was behind their self-driving efforts. And now he's focused on AI education through his own project, Eureka Labs. So he's got a lot of clout in this industry. So Twitter might not be the place where you should say something like, I don't know, I accept all always. Because on this platform, I think that people have been trained to read short messages. So this right here is 233 characters. which is where I think most people, 5 million of them, stopped reading and started vibing. And I mean, look at that. They vibed, right? Move over sliced bread, right? Did you know that vibe coding helps entrepreneurs launch a product in a weekend, or that it can let 10 engineers do the work of 100? It took 2 days to build a product now. This guy makes $3,000 a day. Vibe coding is revolutionary. It's transforming software. Vibe coding is your way to freedom. Vibe coding can even run your Etsy and Shopify stores if you let it. I mean, this is pretty amazing stuff, right? You know, all of the fanfare and fervor that I saw about vibe coding, strangely enough, reminded me of Stephen Covey's story about sharpening the saw. And so if you're unfamiliar with it, it's about two people. One man is hurriedly and laboring, trying to saw down a tree with a dull saw. And another man comes on and he says, "Hey man, why don't you just stop for a moment and sharpen your saw?" And then he says, "I can't stop to sharpen my saw. I'm too busy cutting down these trees." So we use this story at Vehicle as a way of stressing the importance of practice and keeping your skills sharp. But what we also do is we say, don't be so focused on sharpening your saw or sawing down trees that you miss the chainsaw that's sitting unused in the background. And as developers, vibe coding is going to be the chainsaw that we use. Now, some people might say that using a chainsaw is the fastest way to lose an arm, right? Just as much as they might say that vibe coding is damaging software engineering, or there's a case against vibe coding, or that vibe coding makes you want to throw up, that it ships vulnerabilities, that it writes bad code and destroys projects, that it's a fantasy and there's lots of risks involved, that there's problems with it, that there's a dark side to it, right? So big deal, right? Something new comes out, somebody hates it, somebody loves it. Where's the story here, right? Well, here's another one. Yet another attempt to undermine the discipline of software engineering. This one I actually think is pretty harsh. It's intellectual. And it was actually published in IEEE magazine in December 2001. So it's obviously not about vibe coding. This was in a letter to the editor titled "Manifesto Elicits Cynicism." And the manifesto that they're talking about there is the Agile Manifesto, and it's the very cornerstone of Agile software development. So it's very cornerstone of Agile software development. 1 second. Oh yeah, at the time, Agile was a very radical approach to developing software, right? And some people loved it and some people hated it. It was threatening to the way that we wrote software. Does that sound familiar? All right, here's another one. We tend to overestimate the effect of a technology in the short run and underestimate the effect in the long run. This is called Amara's Law. Gartner took Amara's Law and they made a graph. They called it the Gartner Hype Cycle. And so this month they released the Gartner Hype Cycle for AI, and they say that Gen AI in general is sitting in the trough of disillusionment, and that AI agents, including vibe coding, is currently cresting the peak of inflated expectations. So what they're saying here, and what I'm saying, and I think what they're saying, is that now is not the time to be completely hands-off with AI agents. On the contrary, we have to be completely hands-on and very focused on what they're doing. So Karpathy went back on stage in June, and he went to Y Combinator's AI startup school. And he gave a talk called "Software is Changing Again." And near the end of that talk, he coined the idea, again, of AI on a leash. Now, in his own words, what he says is that AI in general is very powerful, but it has a lot of jagged edges, which is a lot like a chainsaw. And if it's going to be of any real use to us, there has to be a human in control. Again, a lot like a chainsaw. So how well you're able to control and work with AI in your day-to-day is going to have a real impact on how many trees you can cut down. So let's spend some time and talk about AI as your new pair programmer. So yesterday's announcement about Boost was really awesome, right? I think it was entirely on brand for Laravel with respect to developer experience. So when it becomes available, install Boost, right? And then just forget everything else I'm about to tell you. One of the most important pieces of advice I like to give to developers is to code inside the lines, right? The framework exists to make our lives as developers easier, enable us to ship faster and with a lot more confidence. So when Boost has its MCP server and its generated guidelines, it's going to be a constant reminder to the AI to code inside the lines, right? So it's honestly a no-brainer. Install it and just let the agent do the rest. Now, if I was going to continue, I might say an important decision that you should make with AI coding assistance is which mental gear you're in. Each mode you shift the agent into typically comes with its own specific system prompt and available tools. Okay, so don't overlook this. Ask mode is your conversational debugger. The assistant system prompt is tuned for contextual answers and has read-only access to the code base. So use curiosity-driven prompts. What contracts does invoice batch process rely on? Edit mode switches the prompt to surgery. The assistant now gets patch tools, but it's blind to the rest of the repository, and it only sees the files that you give it access to. So talk in diffs. In the payment controller, rename charge to capture and update all of the callers. Agent mode unlocks repo-wide search, gives you multi-file editing. It can run tests and terminal commands, those sorts of things. So for this, talk in intent. Say migrate authentication to Laravel Sanctum, update configs, routes, and run the tests until your CI passes. Common criticism that I hear of AI generated code is something like, sure, it's good, right? But I always have to change X to Y. So this is your cue to lay down some ground rules. Rule or instruction files act like a standing order to your model. So they shrink its decision space. So your personal preferences, they don't have to be rediscovered on every single prompt. Best practice here is to keep 2 layers. You've got your global rules, which are your own personal conventions for naming things, how you test things, just how you like your code. And then you have your project-specific rules. Those are things for the architecture of the application, your domain knowledge, the tech stacks that you're working in. Now, I've noticed that different vendors have chosen different names for these files and put them in different places. It's a lot like lint files. They have different names and structures and whatnot. So just like lint configs, you should put them into version control. So when a new teammate clones your repo, all of those change X to Y sort of nitpicks just disappear. I've got a lot of kids. That's about me. When one of my kids turns 11, we start reading Harry Potter together. And I really enjoy reading the description that's given of the burrow. It's charming, except that magic is the only thing that keeps it up and from killing the Weasleys. So when we use one more tweak on AI generated snippets, we're basically building software burrows, right? We're just building on unstable patches that barely stand on their own. And I think that there's 2 human habits that trick us into making these tweaks. First is sunk cost. When we write code, the effort's real, right? So deleting it hurts. But generated code, we should treat it as though it's disposable. It's cheap. It only costs a couple seconds to make and only costs a couple tokens and those sorts of things. So, if you don't like it, throw it out, start over, and reprompt with the context that was missing the first time. Secondly, and I think it's just politeness. I think that when we're working with our team members, we tend to soften our feedback. We say, just change this a little bit. But AI doesn't have any feelings, so we got to stop treating it like it does, okay? Just start over. It doesn't matter. All right, but also make sure that you balance this with good enough. So if the AI gets you 80% of the way there, and there's only 20% that's left over that you can hand code on your own, just take that win, okay? And sorry, take that win. Let's move on. All right, don't repeat yourself. Suppose you just finished the first of many tedious and repeatable refactors. Instead of describing the change 50 times or more, use the first diff of that change and turn it into a template for the AI. The workflow is actually really straightforward. First thing you do is you get the diff of the first refactor, then in edit mode, add the files that need the same refactor and supply the diff as context. And then just use a prompt like apply the pattern shown here to the classes that I've provided and make a similar refactor. The model sees a before and after example of this, and this is just classic few-shot prompting. It's important to keep the diff small and remember to commit after every single batch. If you notice that the model starts drifting after 2, 3, 4 iterations, just reset and start fresh again. So a language model, this is going to be controversial, can describe your changes faster and more consistently than you ever can. So hand over that keyboard, all right? The good news here is that now you can be the first person to never read your commit messages. I found that the way that commit messages are generated, it varies a lot across different vendors. So Cursor will try to adapt its message style to what's already in the repo. GitHub Copilot and JetBrains allow you to set the message context using instruction files. There's also a number of standalone tools. Before I was using GitHub Copilot, I was using AI commits, and I can really recommend that one. This isn't a joke. There's also Commit GPT and GPT Commit, and they'll use Git hooks, and they'll prepare the message for you so that it's ready to go when you're ready to commit. This is just good project hygiene, right? You get readable commits and no more whip noise. All right, stop writing prompts as well, okay? So if you're about to do something that's really involved, like a big refactor or a small feature or something like that, writing a good prompt is hard. So let's do some meta prompting instead. Start in ask mode, and you work with the model to develop the prompt that you want to write. And then once you have it, you flip over to agent mode and you just let it rip. A really important part of this is about stating what you want and not how you want it. So include high-level constraints like you must update or add tests. I find it really helpful to use a bulleted list for requirements here that's related to the specific implementation. I'll cover things like error conditions, where I want the data to go to, where it's coming from, that sort of thing. And iteration here is really key, okay? So if you read through the prompt, it's generally pretty good, but there might be a few changes that you want to make. It's your choice at this point to reset if you want, or just add a few future further refinements. All right, last one, I promise. Sorry, guys. Is the multi-agent workflow. So this one is really neat. So you have a writer model and that writes the code, and a reviewer model that reviews the code. So what you do is you take the diff that was generated by the first model in the writer mode, and you give it to the reviewer, and you ask for a structured critique. So Microsoft calls this pattern reflection, and research has shown that this generate, review, rewrite cycle boosts your accuracy by up to 20%. And easing into this is actually pretty simple. You have two chat windows open. So the agent writes the code, you grab the diff, you give it to the reviewer reviews the code, and you ask for a structured commit or a critique. You then supply that critique to the writer and say, implement these changes, please, and off you go. So ask for bugs, gaps in testing, style issues, that sort of thing. All right. And that's it. Okay, that's my time. Again, we're just at the beginning of wait, I got something really like transformative to tell you. We're just at the beginning of an incredible journey, okay? So watch trends, stay curious, and you should just clap now. That's probably what you should do.
Flawless. Well done. Well done. There you go. Okay, so as a crew chief,
Yeah.
like probably engineering manager,
Yeah.
we've seen several of these like use AI mandates come in at different companies, and they go viral on Twitter. As a manager, have you issued any of those mandates, and why or why not?
So yeah, I mean, like we have definitely stressed the importance of working with AI. I think that as a consultancy, what we do, there's a lot more. People will think that you can produce more, and it is true, you really can. So we tell people, you should really embrace these things. It's not going away, so you need to learn how to use it so that you can use it effectively and increase your productivity.
I think that seems reasonable, just like you. Everybody say thank you to Colin DeCarlo.
Thank you very much.
Well done.